Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the July Diamond Valley Writers Guild meeting. It's so nice to see all these fresh faces, and I'm sure some of you made drives that were a little longer than others, and we appreciate you coming out. Everybody on Zoom, we appreciate you coming into our meeting and sharing some of this time together. We've got a great program for you today. If you're a first-time participant, we especially welcome you. And if you want to receive our information via email for upcoming meetings, just either email dvwritersguild@gmail.com and we'll put you on the mailing list, or you can write it down if you're here in the room on our sign-up sheet. Reminder to Zoom participants, please mute your mics. There will be question and answer. There is some audience participation involved today. So there's a handout. I think those in the room have received the handout, and he'll be walking us through a little exercise, which will be fun. Anthology update, Kevin.
Hey there. For the anthology, we are in the very, very final stages of editing. I think there's only a few articles left. And I've actually begun taking a few of the finalized articles, and I'm already playing around with the formatting side of it. So hopefully we're going to have something a little more concrete soon.
Thank you for the update. We're also in the throes of choosing our title, our cover for the anthology, and it looks fabulous. So we'll do a cover reveal, hopefully beginning of August, middle of August is what we're hoping for. Shout outs, Lynette. By the way, those of you who don't know, Kevin is my vice president, and he is up in Canada. He's in Calgary. Go ahead, Lynette, who is in Montana.
Good morning, everybody. Just a reminder that we do monthly shout outs. So if you are a paid member of the Guild, we would like to celebrate you, all your writing thing. Whether you've got a new book coming out, whether you've got an audiobook coming out, whether you're doing a blog post, whether you're doing a book signing, you've won an award, we want to know about it. We want to celebrate with you. Usually we have the deadline of turning everything in by the 5th, but we don't usually send out the shout outs till the 20th. So if you're brand new and you want to join today and get some shout outs and celebration, sign up, pay your membership. We're going to be sending out the shout outs next week, so there's still time.
Excellent. She does a great job. Lynette is one of our board of directors and a huge supporter. She also is currently running most of the social media posts. So, and we are looking for a volunteer to help out with that. If you are savvy about social media and want to help out, please let us know, and we'll put you together with Lynette, and she can help get you up to speed. Diamond Valley Writers Guild merchandise from Cafe Press. Kevin's going to take that. For those of you in the room, I put a display out. Maybe we'll put that into the chat so you can see it. But we have a lot of merch, so go ahead, Kevin.
Nice. I didn't know about the display. So yeah, as you can see, there's a display of merchandise. You can get cups, you can get shirts, you can get golf balls, various bags, almost anything. And Cafe Press, which has a nice little logo right at the very top of our website, they actually take care of all of the sales, support, shipping, everything. And the Diamond Valley Writers Guild just gets a small commission from every sale. So it's just another way to help support support the Guild, and by wearing and showing off our merchandise, you're helping to build awareness.
Thank you, Kevin. He manages that too. Kevin is also our webmaster, and he does a fabulous job. Jessica, are you going to do member benefits from back there? Or okay, she's coming. And Jessica is our treasurer.
And about a million other jobs. That's why I was late. Hi, everyone. I'm not that short, so I'm just going to stand awkwardly over this box. I'm here to tell you about membership benefits. So in order to keep everything that you see going, we have annual membership that you can pay in and get certain benefits. You get to be able to participate in Guild publications, such as anthologies, magazines, articles, anything like that. You also are able to participate in our 2 member meetings, which include the April poetry meeting, which we moved from August to April. And you also get to participate in the October prose reading, which means you get to submit your own work, poetry or prose, read it for the entire Guild, and it gets put up on the website and put up on YouTube for the world to share. So it's a great time to give back to the Guild and to show off your work. The last thing you are able to get is, what is it? Well, you can run the board. You can run for the board. That's right. You get to do fun things like this where you get to go up in front of people and talk for a long time. But you get to be a part of the board of directors, which include president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and member at large. You get to make decisions. You get to make sure that the guild keeps running. You also get to vote in our annual general meeting, which is voting for positions at the board. That's coming up in October. It's always the last meeting of the year. Now, we know things are hard for everybody, so we try to keep it affordable. It is $25 a year for general membership. If you are a college student, it is $15, and if you are high school, it is $10. So please do consider joining the Guild and helping support make all of this possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. She's running around doing like 5 jobs this morning, so that's why she was out of breath and with no notes. But I think she covered pretty much everything. If you have questions, our website has all the information about the member benefits and what you get for your $25. One of the best, I think, benefits for people who are published and or speakers is that we have our monthly shout outs, and we celebrate if you've won an award, you have a new book coming out, a new article coming out, made a sale. We love to celebrate that every month for our members, but you must be a paid member to do that. We're looking for volunteers. I mentioned social media. We're also looking for volunteers for board positions, monthly tips. We do a monthly tip, either tech or writing tip, and we would love to have people who have some knowledge of one subject or another, very short subject, like 5 minutes, to volunteer to do that. Now we're going to move on to my favorite part of the program, and that is member successes. And that is if you've had a recent publication, and even if you're not a member, if you're a guest today, you've had a recent publication, you started a project, you completed a project, you won an award, you were nominated for an award, or you just started writing again after a hiatus of 6 months. Please, if you're in the room, go to the mic and tell us about your success. If you're on Zoom, unmute and let's hear about some of those successes. Anybody have any successes or announcements? Oh, come on. There's got to be somebody. Oh, there. Please go to the mic. Yeah, please go to the mic. What was your name? I'm sorry. Larry. Okay, go over to the mic there, Larry. And Sophia, that will not work. I have to get back through there. Go ahead, right to this mic.
Okay, one of the worst things you can do is put me in front of a mic, so then I talk forever. I published my first novel in January of 2024. It was a religious novel that entailed basically 50 years of research on questions that I had, religious questions. It took me about 5 years to compile it, put it all together, and it was actually published in January of 2024.
Congratulations, congratulations. Anybody else have a project start or completion or won some award or were nominated? Anybody want to say something? Good, please go to the mic. Go ahead. That's Albin. He's one of our members, and he's going to be in the upcoming anthology. He's got some great poems.
Last month I gave some bad information because I was talking about the NaNoWriMo and how you could go on NaNoWriMo and track your words on there if you started a novel for Camp NaNoWriMo. I went to put my project on there for July and I found out that it was kaput. You know, it imploded financially. Anyway, I did start in my historical novel and I keep track of my words every day. But I finished the first novel around the 12th or 13th, and then I'd start a second one, and I'm basically 2/3 of the way through that one. But
Congratulations.
When I do those, it's not in prose narrative with all the dialogue and everything. It's in actually narrative verses of 5 lines in every verse. So it's a little bit weird, but it's something I like to do. And someday I'll turn all those narrative novels into prose novels.
Excellent.
Perhaps,
well, congratulations.
But it's
Okay.
fun. Even though there's no NaNoWriMo, you can still track your words and keep up with your project if you hold your own feet to the fire.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody on Zoom want to unmute? They have something they would like to share with the group? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. I'll make one quick announcement. One of our members, Bing Bruce, he was our speaker on podcasting recently, those of you who were here. He is speaking at the Writers Cantina Conference in Salt Lake City at the end of the month. I'm not sure. I know that Lynette from Montana is going. I'm going. Liam Bruce in the back, our AV guy, he's going. So it is a great conference. It's a 2-day conference. It's like $40 for 2 days. It's a cheap conference, and it's really, really cool. So if you have free time next weekend and want to journey to Utah, check it out. It's Writers Cantina Conference. A couple of other announcements, and if someone who is shy decides they want to announce a start or a stop or a something wonderful, feel free to interrupt me. But I wanted to let you know that we do have other writer resources within drivable distance to the Hemet San Jacinto Valley and Diamond Valley Writers Guild. One of them is the Inland Empire California Writers Club. They meet on the 4th Saturday. They're in Ontario. And if you want information on them, you can again email us. Temecula Valley Writers and Illustrators, they meet on the 3rd Sunday at the City of Temecula City Hall. And that's from 11 to 1, and that's tomorrow. Writers Coffee House meets in San Diego at Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore, and that's from 12 to 3 on the first Sundays of the month. And I like to, uplift other writers groups in our area, because it's good to feed your writer's soul with a lot of different input. And Diamond Valley, we do one thing, Temecula does something else, Writers Coffee House does something else. So it's good to branch out. If you want any information on these other groups, please let me know. Hemet Public Library is going to be hosting a ghost walk the evening of October 10th here at the library, and they're looking for 5 spooky stories, preferably related to locations in the Hemet San Jacinto Valley, but that's not required. No retellings of horror movies or popular ghost stories. They need to be about 10 minutes long and structured to either be read or performed by 1 or 2 people. So I guess skits are also allowed. Submission deadline is September 1st and should be emailed as a Word document or a PDF to Andrea at ajacomet@hemetcalifornia.gov. Again, if you want more information, there is a flyer on the table, but we will get that out for everybody probably the first part of the week, a flyer from the city. And the Diamond Valley Writers Guild is creating a committee to be established to evaluate the submissions and decide which 5 stories or skits the library will use. So I'm looking for volunteers who would like to read ghost stories, short ghost stories, and pick 5 winners out of whatever's submitted by September 1st. So again, contact the Guild if you're interested. And that's about it. They're also hoping to make this an annual event like they do in Riverside, and they used to do at the Mission Inn in Riverside, any of you who attended that. And that would mean actually a moving ghost story, ghost walk from different offices here within the Civic Center near the library. All right. Any other announcements regarding writing that anyone wishes to make? I'm not seeing anybody. Everybody's quiet today. We'll move on to the tech tip from Kevin Kendall up in Canada.
Hey everyone, this is kind of a spur of the moment thing because we forgot to organize one, but I'm going back to my roots, and I used to actually teach, this is way before Google and all that stuff, I used to actually teach email etiquette and establishing your digital footprint. So first step is purchase your domain name. That is, whether you're a published writer or anybody, you should always register your own domain name under your name. So you don't end up, after you get famous or get published or whatever, end up with, John Doe -author and have to explain that. All of the famous guys, Stephen King, Jeffrey Deaver, Diana Gabaldon, J.K. Rowling, if you just type in their name in the search bar, you will go directly to their website without having to do any searching. So getting your domain name is always a good thing. The other reason for that is because if you do get famous and published, and you don't have your domain name, companies that can buy these things in bulk will buy it on your behalf and try to sell it to you at a very marked up price. So that would be the first step. Second step is create an author website. Now, it doesn't have to be, you may not know your identity or your genre yet, but you can create a website for free using Wix or several other tools, or you can even just purchase your domain name and redirect it to the Diamond Valley author's profile page that is created for you when you are a member. So that would be the number 2. Number 3, create an email address specifically for your writing. Don't use your personal email address because, well, they can get hacked, they can change over time, or various other reasons. But it just helps to keep things separate if you actually have a separate account. Now, 4th thing is author branding. You can create business cards for your writing, because writing is a business. But I would caution against using an email address that is not using your domain name. Again, accounts can be hacked, they can change, companies can get bought out, sold, go under, whatever, even though some places like Gmail are pretty big. So I would actually recommend on a business card, just put your website address, your website domain name, because that would be the central location for everything that you do. That would link all your social accounts. You can have a contact form in there so you don't have to give out phone numbers and email addresses, everything like that. And finally, you can also get into business or author branding. You can get logos designed. You can do various other things, but every email you send out should have a signature that advertises a text link to your website and your name, and you can actually have other taglines and awards and kudos and all that kind of stuff in it. So that's some basic establishing your digital footprint instructions. And if you guys have any questions regarding doing any of that, by all means, you can email the Guild and I will help you.
Thank you,
Kevin. Else?
Thank you, Kevin. We are very, very fortunate to have Kevin, and he's incredibly knowledgeable on anything digital, internet, email, website. So again, thank you, and hopefully you all got something out of that. Now we're going to move on to our guest speaker, and to introduce our guest speaker today is Kay Murphy. If you could please come up, Kay. You can either, do you want to use the box or not use the box? It's pretty tall. Yeah, and in case you needed it. Oh. Yeah, I think I know all that. Oh, this is so cool. I'm tall. I'm tall. I apologize if I look a little bleary-eyed. I would blame your guest speaker today for that. I stayed up an hour past my bedtime last night reading Martin's most recently published novel, which is Grover Wilcox Goes to the Circus. I could not put it down. I really think it might be his best work yet, and that is saying a lot. I realize I know the assignment. I know at this point in time I'm supposed to give you all the accolades of Martin Lastrapes, and the reason we do that is so that you will pay attention. It sort of establishes credibility so that you'll pay attention while he's talking. And accolades like, oh, he's published 5 novels. His first novel won grand prize at the Paris Book Festival. Yeah, prizes, schmizes, right? He's also, by the way, won a number of short story competitions. I don't want to talk about all that. I want to tell you a story, and then I'll tell you why. Martin Lastrapes and I were destined to cross paths. Way back many, many years ago, when I was young and lovely, and so was Martin, I started teaching English 1A for Chaffey College. I had been a Chaffey College student at one time, and after I got my master's degree, I wanted to give back to that institution, so I began teaching English 1A, and in my initial English 1A class
was a student by the name of Martin Lastrapes. I learned his name very quickly because weekly my students were assigned an essay to write. And early on in the semester, I began on Sunday afternoons when I would sit down on my back patio with a stack of mediocre to horrific essays. Writers, if you've never read first-year college English essays, I hope you never have to. I would go through the stack and I would find Martin's and I would put it on the bottom. And the reason I put it on the bottom was so that after I sat there and did my due diligence and read all of those agonizingly bad essays, I could read whatever Martin had written. I didn't care what it was. Sometimes he made me laugh. Sometimes he made me cry. Sometimes he made me do both in one essay. I don't know how he did it. But I will tell you this. I told Martin at the time, you could be a writer. By the way, he did set out to prove me wrong, as he told me later in an email, but he was unsuccessful because, in fact, he is a writer. Beyond that, though, I wish I had written to him, Martin, you are a born storyteller, because he is a born storyteller. He was then, and I'm pretty sure he had just graduated high school, or maybe recently. And I told him that you could be a writer because when I was in the 4th grade, a teacher told me you could be a writer, and I believed her, and at 21, I started my writing career, and I hoped that Martin would go on to do some writing. And he did, although I didn't know it for a good number of years until I got an email from somebody who said, I don't know if you remember me, my name is Martin Lastrapes, and immediately I went, oh, Martin! And he told me about all of his successes to that point. So when I tell you that this individual knows about character development, he has the street cred. So I hope that when he's talking, you'll pay attention to what he says. And please join me in welcoming Martin Lastrapes.
Oh, goodness, what am I supposed to do now? That genuinely took my breath away, so give me just a second. That was so sweet. Well, I guess I can start with the part that you already know. My name is Martin Lastrapes. I'm an author. I'm an independent publisher. I'm lucky enough to both be friends with Kay Murphy and have had my life changed by Kay Murphy. I love writing so much, and I didn't know that with the story that Kay was telling you. That story was just about 30 years ago. And so my love affair with writing is almost 30 years old now, thanks to Kay. And she's right. I did just graduate from high school, and I had what you might call an aggressively mediocre high school career. I was not a good high school student. Academically speaking, as a person, I was great. I showed up on time. My teachers thought I was nice. I was quiet. I never ditched class. I never talked out of turn. I didn't even raise my hand because I had nothing to say. I got mostly B's and C's, and if I'm being honest, I don't know if I earned any of those C's. They probably could have been D's, possibly F's, but like I said, I was nice. I showed up on time, so they moved me along. And when I graduated high school, it could have been 5 minutes after I took off my cap and gown, I was racked with anxiety because I realized I have no idea what to do with my life. Like, not a clue. I had no discernible skills. I had no goals. I had no real purpose. The only thing that I knew was that I didn't want to waste my life, but that was very vague. I didn't know what to do with that. And so, not knowing what else to do, I signed up at my local community college, which was JV College. And that first year, I signed up for English 1A, which was freshman composition, with a teacher in the catalog whose name was Kay Murphy, but in that case, it was the initial K, so I didn't know her name was also Kay. And I even remember this detail, I bet Kay forgot. It was a last minute class that they added a few weeks into the semester because they had some overflow. So to say we were destined to be together, she's not wrong. And so when I got to her class, the first assignment she gave us, well, technically the first two, because I basically remember all of them. The first was just like an in-class writing assignment. And because I didn't know anything, I just wrote what, actually, you know what, Kay, I do know what it was. You asked us to write about 3 magazines that we liked. And it was just probably just like a very simple, just warm up your brains activity. And for whatever reason, I didn't have the capacity to follow her directions. So instead, I wrote a story about how I went to the mall and I found this bookstore, and on the bookshelf, here was these magazines. And I turned it into a story. And I didn't think of myself as a writer or a storyteller. I was trying to entertain myself because I knew genuinely it was only a matter before I flunked out of school, so I may as well try to have a little fun before that happens. And so I did that for her, and she loved it. I honestly thought she was going to be mad at me, but she loved it, so I thought that was fun. But then the first proper assignment she gave us was to write an autobiographical essay. And I didn't know what that was. She explained it. Essentially, 30 years later, I understand we were writing a memoir piece, essentially. She just wanted us to tell a story about ourselves. So I decided to write about this story that happened to me in high school. I won't give you the full details, but it involved me being an ice cream scooper at Thrifty's and getting into some scandalous business that involved maybe stealing some candy and ice cream and possibly so stealing money. I wouldn't quite call it laundering, but it wasn't honest work. And It followed up with me in an interrogation room that I didn't even know they had those at Thrifty's, but it was this dark room with a swinging light, is the way I remember it. And I was in there for about 4 hours being interrogated, terrified. And anyway, that said, that was a story that was, very impactful on me. So I decided, let me write about that. But again, I didn't know how to write. I didn't know anything about writing essays. I certainly didn't know how to write an autobiographical essay. So I procrastinated, as you do when you're a bad student like I was. I waited till the night before the assignment was due and I sat down at the computer, and knowing nothing, I just kind of stream of consciousness free-formed this story, and just one fell swoop, one draft. I don't even think I looked at it again because my thought was, she's going to hate this. I'm doing it wrong. I'm going to get a failing grade on this, and then that'll be it. Then I'll fail out of school, and that's okay because I was never going to succeed at this anyway. And I'll figure out the next step after this. And so turned in my essay, and then about a week later, Kay said, I have this one essay that I really love, and I want to share it with you guys. And I was happy for whoever that was in the class. And I was thinking, this is going to be a nice day for them. So she starts reading the essay, and I swear to you this is true. I wouldn't make this up. We've known each other for 5 minutes. I wouldn't lie to you. She got maybe 2 sentences into this essay, and genuinely, my first thought is, what are the odds that somebody else worked at Thrifty's? It's crazy. That was my actual thought. And then the more she read, I realized, oh, she's reading my story, or my essay, as it were. And it was just the most amazing experience because as she's reading it, there was parts of the essay that, I thought were funny, and the class was laughing out loud. I couldn't believe it. And then there was parts of the essay, particularly when I was being interrogated, and it was kind of scary. I certainly was scared. The class, I kid you not, they were gasping, audible gasp. I couldn't believe this experience I was having. It was like my own audiobook. And so by the time she was done, the class was clapping, and I was elated. I was on cloud 9. This was the best feeling I'd ever had in my life. And I knew that I wanted to chase this feeling. I didn't quite know what it was or how I was going to get it again, but I knew that I loved this. And Kay gave the essay back to me, and like she told you guys, she wrote this very nice note on the back of the essay, as good teachers often do. And like she said, she told me, you're pretty good at this. You should consider studying English and being a writer. And what she didn't know, well, first of all, she knew she was being a good teacher and she was being nice because that's what she is. What she didn't know is how desperately I needed that. She had no idea that I was racked with anxiety, that I had no idea what to do with my life, that I had no discernible skills, no direction, no goals, and in one fell swoop, she gave me all of that. I had at least one possible discernible skill, according to this one person, so I was willing to believe her, because outside of that, I didn't know what to do. Now I had a goal to be a writer. I didn't know what that meant, but it was something. It was more than I had when I took off my cap and gown. And so, like she said, I believed her and I took her up on it. And the 30 years in, it's been the most amazing thing. And I can say without hyperbole, S.K. Murphy absolutely changed my life. I even standing here in front of you guys, this would not be a thing. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Kay and I crossing paths. So I see her getting emotional, so I'm going to try not to embarrass her. But I love you, Kay. Thank you so much. So I guess we can start talking about character if you guys are up for that. You can put the PowerPoint up if that's available. I would tap dance for you, but like I said, I only have one discernible skill at this point. I know, that's the other thing. That would be a tricky proposition, but you guys are great. I would try it for you. You've earned it. You came out. So character development, creating the illusion of flesh and blood on the page. I love everything about writing. I love everything about storytelling. I love narrative structure, and I love character arcs, story arcs. But character development, it's absolutely one of my favorite things about storytelling, and it's one of the elements of storytelling that I spend a lot of time on, just because I love it so much. And so it's very exciting that I get to talk about this with you guys this morning. To begin with, as Kay was kind enough to reference, I've got six books under my belt, 5 novels, 1 short story collection. My first book, this is Inside the Outside. It's a literary horror novel. I published it in 2011. And as I mentioned, I'm an independent publisher, so I self-published all of my books, which in 2025, I'm thrilled that self-publishing is so accessible, and anybody with an idea, good or bad, can publish their book. I love that. In 2011, it was not so. It was surprisingly difficult to self-publish a book, just because there wasn't a lot of information. You could do it if you were motivated to figure it out, but there were no real books, there was no classes, there were no websites making it easy for you. But I was motivated, and I desperately wanted to be a published author at this point. So this was my first book, Inside the Outside. Super duper proud of it. Both I'm proud of the book itself, but also that this was my initiation into the self-publishing world. In 2015, I published my trilogy of vampire books. It's called the Vampire and the Hunter trilogy. This collection of books, it's sort of a horror vampire humor, something like that. All of my books are kind of a hybrid hyphen type of genre. But in this collection of stories, it's about a vampire and a vampire hunter, and they're both in love with the same girl who happens to be working on a novel about vampires. And so presumably the story is going to be about sort of the love triangle between the vampire hunter, and the girl who's writing about vampires. And it's going that way until the girl is kidnapped by Dracula. And so there's no confusion. Yes, that Dracula. And so as Dracula is holding her hostage, this vampire and vampire hunter have to figure out how to rescue her. So not only are they enemies in life, but now they're enemies in love, but they have to work together to save the girl. And that story happens over the course of 3 books. Do they succeed? I don't know. You have to get to book 3. But in 2017, I published my first and only short story collection. It's Dolph the Unicorn Killer and Other Stories. The primary story you can kind of see on the cover there, that's Dolph the Unicorn Killer. He's a superhero that kills unicorns. And he has this supernatural ability that he can see unicorns. So the rest of the world, they're invisible, but he can actually see them. But as far as the world knows, he's the crazy guy that says unicorns are real. But they really are. And as far as he's concerned, they're dangerous, and he has to kill all of them to save humanity. Really proud of that book. And then my most recent book came out last year, 2024. It's called Grover Wilcox Goes to the Circus. Kay referenced it, so I appreciate that. This book, I'm terribly proud of it. I'm proud of all of my books, but this one, I know it's my most recent one, and I don't know, all of my books are like my kids. But if I had to pick a favorite, Grover is tremendously close to me. I worked on it for almost 10 years, which, if I'm being frank with you, that's too long to write a novel. But this one took me a while, but I'm super duper proud of it. For this one, I do have a book trailer for it, so I'd like to share that with you. And I believe if I do this, it'll play. Let's see. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So Grover Wilcox Goes to the Circus. It's about a college English professor, something Kay and I both know something about. And he's sort of at a bit of a dead end in his life, and he has a catastrophic accident in his kitchen where he's fully engulfed in flames, only to find out that he's fireproof. And so, what else would you do when you find out you're fireproof but run away with the circus? And as he runs away with the circus, madness and chaos ensues. And so the book itself, it's sort of magical realism, fantasy, mystery thriller. Again, all of my books are a little bit of a hyphen hybrid. But this book I'm terribly proud of. It's won a couple of awards. Most recently, it won the silver medal in the IPPY Awards. That's it's an independent. It's like independent book publishing conference. I really should know the name because they gave me a silver medal. But but I was really proud of that. Although, if I'm being honest, and I think we all know each other at this point, if I'm being honest, silver medal. I want to tell you I wasn't salty. But I mean, gold was right there. And my lovely wife is in the front row. If for any reason you think I'm doing this for a laugh, you can ask her. I was really, guys, silver. But honestly, it's wonderful. I'm so excited about it, and they sent me a genuine silver medal. I should have brought it with me, but anyway, it was super nice. So this book I'm terribly proud of. This is just a collection of nice things that some folks have said about the book since it came out. Inventive and memorable, with a cast of characters that are both strange and brilliantly developed. That's from the Book Life Prize, which is associated with Publishers Weekly, I believe. Wonderful mix of humor, intrigue, and character development. That's from a nice Amazon review somebody left for me. And Lastrapes nails it with charming humor, likable characters, and an electrifying climax. That was from Mercedes M. Yardley, a wonderful writer she's also a 2-time Bram Stoker award-winning author. And she was nice enough that she let me know that she read the whole book in one setting, which wasn't her plan. I think she started on a Saturday morning, and she said she kept reading until it was over, and she loved it. So anyway, I share these with you. Let's be honest, a little bit of a humble brag, but also, I picked these out specifically because they were also nice things that also involved character development. So just in case there was any part of you that was a little bit nervous or trepidatious or thinking, why is he talking to us about character? They said nice things about me. So, so they liked it. So with that in mind, I love the show Yellow Jackets. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this show, but it's fantastic. And if you're not familiar, it's kind of sort of like Lord of the Flies, but instead of like adolescent boys, it's a group of high school girls, a high school soccer team, and their plane crashes in some ambiguous forest, and they're stranded there, and they have to figure out how to survive in this place, and they have to figure out how to survive the elements and survive wildlife and ultimately survive each other. It's a wonderful show. I love it so much. Season 1 of this show, it's fantastic. No notes. Love it. Beginning to end. Amazing. Season 2 of the show, really, really good. Maybe a couple notes, but they don't need that for me. It was wonderful. I love virtually every second of season 2. Now, season 3 of the show, it's just us, right? This isn't projecting out anywhere. Nobody outside of this room can hear me say these things. Okay, so I love Yellow Jackets. But you know what? Here's the thing. Let's be honest. They need to hear this part. Tough love. Season 3 of the show. Actually, let me take one step back. There's no accounting for taste. And every journey as an audience member, it's a unique journey. My unique journey was season 3 was terrible. Oh my goodness, it was awful. I hated it. Every second of it that I watched, and I watched all of it, every single episode, I did not like it, and I had several notes. If any of them wants to talk to me, I'll offer my notes to them. And honestly, season 3 felt like, I don't know, it felt like whoever was writing season 3 had never seen the show before. Like maybe they just read a Wikipedia synopsis and like took their best shot at it. And but here's the thing, I watched the whole season, even though I wasn't enjoying it very much. And the reason is I love these characters. I love them desperately. And even though I wasn't enjoying the show, I needed to know what's going to happen to them. Are they going to be okay? Are they going to make it? Are we going to have any casualties? What's going to happen? And I say I didn't enjoy season 3, but again, like I said, I watched every single second of it. So, again, why would I do that? It's genuinely because of the characters. Good characters, good character development has that power in storytelling, that it's not that you want your audience to stop enjoying the story, but if you've got great characters, it kind of gives you some wiggle room. I literally watched every episode, and I can't wait for season 4. I'm going to watch every episode of that. And even if it gets worse, I'll keep watching because I love these characters, and I have to know what's going to happen on their journey, if they're going to be okay. If they're not going to be okay, I want to know what that looks like. So with that said, as far as character development goes, as far as creating good characters, as far as creating the sort of characters that keeps an audience member, regardless of genre, it could be a book, it could be a TV show, it could be a movie, to create a character that is so compelling that your audience sticks with you. How do you do that? And as far as I'm concerned, there's really only 3 elements you have to get comfortable with. And it's these 3 that I have up here on the screen for you. It's a good character arc, it's defined physical traits, and well-defined abstract traits. And really that's it. That's really the recipe. If you get comfortable with these 3 elements, you have everything you need to write a good, compelling character. And so I'm going to talk about all 3 of them in pretty good detail, starting with character arc. So a character arc, it's one of these terms you've almost definitely heard this over the years. And if you've never looked it up on your own, you've probably, just from being intelligent people interested in writing, you probably figured out on your own what a character arc is. But for the sake of putting us all on the same page, here's a nice general definition of character arc. It's the journey of personal growth, change, or transformation that a character undergoes throughout a story, often shaped by the challenges and events they experience. And in general, even beyond this definition, when I think about character arc, I'm thinking about two very specific periods in the story, and that's quite literally the beginning of the story and the end of the story. And so when I think about my character, who is my character at the beginning of the story? And then who's my character at the end of the story? And ideally, they should be different. There should be some sort of change, significant or otherwise. It could be an internal change, it could be an emotional change, it could be a physical change, it could be a change in their physical belongings, whatever it is. There should be some kind of a change from who were they at the beginning and who are they at the end. And more importantly, how did they get there? And so everything that happened to get there from the beginning to the end, that's the arc. That's the character arc. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but first I want to talk about soap operas. When I was a kid, I loved Days of Our Lives. Absolutely loved it. I could only really watch it during the summer or, like a holiday break, or if I got a sick day from school, and sometime, if necessary, depending on what was happening in Days of Our Lives, I might have had to fake being sick just to see what was happening. Just from my own knowledge, are any other Days of Our Lives fans in the room? Oh, thank goodness. Okay, wonderful. And for clarity, I was in 3rd grade. I don't know if that's normal, but boy, did I didn't miss an episode if I could help it. I wasn't around for the moon landing, but I did see Bo and Hope get married. And I think that I got the better end of that deal. The characters on the screen for my fellow Days fans, you'll recognize Steve and Kayla, or for my fans, what was his nickname? Anybody? Patch. His nickname was Patch. You could tell the writer's room was inspired that day when they gave the guy with an eye patch the nickname of Patch. So when I was a kid, and the reason we're talking about Days of Our Lives, my understanding of storytelling was very binary. You had good guys and you had bad guys, and that was it. There was no in between. There was no gray area. And so Patch, in particular, he was the first character as a kid that I that I saw in storytelling go through a significant character arc. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know there was a name for it, character arc. I recognize now, 40 some odd years later, that's what I was watching. And so Patch, if you can't tell by the eye patch and the leather jacket, he was bad news. He was a bit of a rapscallion. He was an ex-merchant marine, and he hung out with a certain criminal element. And the gal with him there, that's Kayla. And, they ended up starting a love affair. But for me, as a kid with a very binary idea of storytelling, good guys and bad guys, never the twain shall meet, they should not have been together. I was very confused as a kid. And, but as I watched their story unfold, in particular the story of Patch, who, again, Stephen, I watched his rough edges start to get softened by Kayla, who, again, she was the town doctor in Salem, in the town of Salem. Town doctor, she was an angel. She probably donated to your favorite charity, whatever it was. She probably rescued, sick pets. Everything good you can imagine, that was Kayla. Everything bad you can imagine, that was Patch. As a kid, these characters should not have been together. But over the course of probably several weeks and several episodes, I watched this character change, and he started to become a nicer guy, and his rough edges got smoothed out, and he stopped hanging around with a criminal element. He even stopped wearing the eye patch. I don't know if there was one of those soap opera medical things, but he didn't need the eye patch anymore. And he stopped going by the name Patch. He started going by his government name of Steve. And Steve and Kayla went on to have one of the most iconic soap opera romances in all of television, and it blew my mind. I didn't know that was a thing that could happen, not just in television, but in storytelling at all. And it was so impactful on me that quite literally 40 years later, I'm talking to you guys about it. So again, that's the impact that good characters can have on you. Even the show Yellow Jackets that I love so much. I spent maybe 1 minute too long talking about how much I didn't love season 3, but I watched every single second of it. And I did that because I loved the characters, because the characters, I felt an emotional connection with these characters. And again, that's what good character development can do for you. And really, you just need those 3 simple elements that we're going to talk about. So with character arc in particular, there's four main stages to a character arc. You've got your starting point, then you've got challenges, then you've got the turning point, and then you have the resolution. So this is a very basic, straightforward look at what a character arc is. And you could almost tell just by the phases what's happening, but to speak to them a little bit, the starting point is quite literally, who is your character at the beginning of the story? Where are they in their life? What's their emotional state? What's their physical state? What friends do they have? Do they have any friends? Who are they at the beginning? And then as you get into the story, as stories go, they face a series of challenges, whatever they might be. And as they face these challenges, they face them with varying levels of success. Some challenges they might succeed in knocking them down. Other challenges they might falter, but maybe they learn some lessons along the way. But for every challenge that they meet, it's affecting their character. It's changing them in big and small ways. And then along the way in the story, you'll probably get to some climactic point in the story itself. And then along the character arc, the character reaches a turning point where they've had so many challenges, they've learned so many lessons that they reach a point in the story where something changes, something flips. They're not the same person that they were when the story began. And that turning point gets us to the resolution. And at that point in the arc, ideally, they're a different person. And whatever that difference is, that's up to you as a storyteller. Again, it could be an emotional difference, it could be a mental difference, it could be a physical difference, but whatever it is, once you get to the end of that arc, ideally, they should be some different version of themselves than they were from the beginning. That's what helps create a nice dynamic character arc. And that's the sort of thing that truly engages an audience in any genre, whether you're talking about prose fiction in a novel, or a short story, or a movie, television show. That's the sort of thing you want to see is a character arc. So this book here, A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving, this is one of my favorite books. John Irving is one of my very favorite authors. And this book has, if you twisted my arm, I might tell you that this book has my favorite opening line of any book that I've ever read. And so I'll share it with you right now, and then I'll tell you a little bit why I love this opening line so much. I am doomed to remember a boy with a wrecked voice. Not because of his voice, or because he was the smallest person I ever knew, or even because he was the instrument of my mother's death, but because he is the reason I believe in God. I am a Christian because of Owen Meany. By the way, if that sounds familiar, this book was the source material for the movie Simon Birch, which came out, I think, in like 1998. So the stories are basically the same, but the character's name is Owen Meany in the book, Simon Birch in the movie. So the first time I read this opening line, it took my breath away. I absolutely loved it, in large part because it literally is. It's one sentence, and within this one sentence, John Irving packed a whole character arc in one sentence. And I realize now that's part of the reason why it blew me away. But within this one sentence, you meet the narrator, who's going to be not your main character, but that main narrator character who kind of is our lens into the characters around him. And we learn he meets this interesting character named Owen Meany, and somehow within this story, Owen Meany is instrumental in the narrator losing his mother. And then somewhere along the way, this character decides that he believes in God, which implicitly means at some point he didn't believe in God. So if you think about a character arc, and you think about that thing we talked about, who are they at the beginning and who are they at the end? In this case, we find out in the beginning, it's implied in this sentence, he didn't believe in God. And then once you get to the end of the story, he does. If that's all you knew right away, he's like, that's got to be some story. And of course, you get into the book, and then the rest gets fleshed out. How did he get from the beginning to the end? And so all of that stuff is packed into this one sentence. And it's easy for me to articulate now why I love this so much. At the time, I had no idea. All I knew was I read this, and it took my breath away. And also, just John Irving is a wonderful writer. But as far as other examples, I found 3 iconic characters that I figured everybody in the room here and everybody on Zoom would recognize. So we've got Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, and Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol. I don't think I have to tell you guys, but I'll say it out loud anyway, since there's a microphone. These are 3 of the most iconic characters in the whole history of storytelling. And I would posit the argument that a good reason why these 3 characters have endured for so many generations is because of the character development that they have, and more specifically, the dynamic character arcs that each of these characters have. And so I'm going to talk about each one of their character arcs a little bit for you right now. So we're going to start with Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol. And again, character arc, we've got story point, starting point, challenges, turning point, and resolution. So let's see what that looks like with Scrooge. Starting point, Scrooge begins as a greedy, cold-hearted miser who values wealth above human connection. As for his challenges, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and yet to come force him to confront his beliefs and behavior. As for the turning point, a vision of his lonely, unredeemed death inspires him to change his ways. And then for his resolution, Scrooge transforms into a generous, compassionate man, spreading joy and kindness to those around him. So there's his full character arc, but if all we did was look at the beginning and the end, where did he start and where did he end? He started as a greedy, cold-hearted miser. And when he got to the end, generous, compassionate man, spreading joy. So if that's all you knew at the beginning of who he was at the beginning, who he was at the end, right away, as an audience member, you can imagine something amazing had to have happened. Something dynamic happened from where he was to where he ended up. And of course, a lot of that is the story, but a lot of that story is informed by his character arc and how he got there. So let's look at Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. So starting point for Dorothy. Dorothy begins as a restless, naive farm girl in Kansas who feels misunderstood and longs for escape, dreaming of a place over the rainbow where life is better. As far as challenges, she's swept into the magical land of Oz, where she must navigate unfamiliar terrain and face dangers like the Wicked Witch. Each challenge tests her courage, compassion, and leadership. And that gets us to her turning point. After overcoming her fears and confronting the Wicked Witch, Dorothy realizes the value of home and the strength she possesses within herself. And that gets us to her resolution. She returns to Kansas, transformed by her journey, appreciating her life and loved ones with renewed perspective and gratitude. So a nice, dynamic story arc, different from Scrooge, but no less a good dynamic story arc. And again, if we just look at the beginning and the end of her arc, at the beginning, She was a restless, naive farm girl. She wanted to explore. She wanted some adventure in her life. And by the time she got to the end, she had a renewed appreciation for her home and her loved ones around her. So a very nice, on its surface, almost simple story arc, but of course, there's nothing simple about Dorothy's story. And then finally, Luke Skywalker in Star Wars: A New Hope. So for any of my fellow Star Wars fans, just to be clear, I'm looking at Luke's story arc just in the first movie. So he's, of course, appears in 6 Star Wars movies, and his story arc ultimately spans those 6 films. But for our purposes today, just looking at Star Wars: A New Hope. So for Luke Skywalker, his starting point, Luke begins as a restless farm boy on Tatooine, yearning for adventure and feeling trapped in a mundane life far from his dreams of heroism. Let me take a break to say, if that sounds suspiciously similar to Dorothy, it's probably not a coincidence. I'm not saying that you need to write a character about a bored farm boy or girl who looks for adventure, but clearly it doesn't not work. As far as Luke's challenges, after the loss of his aunt and uncle, he joins Obi-Wan Kenobi on a mission to rescue Princess Leia, facing dangers like the Death Star and navigating new alliances while discovering his latent abilities with the Force. Then he gets to his turning point. Luke embraces his destiny during the attack on the Death Star, trusting in the Force and himself to make the critical shot that ensures victory. And finally, we get to Luke's resolution. Luke transforms into a brave, self-assured hero, ready to embrace his path as a Jedi and defender of the galaxy. So again, nice dynamic character arc. But if we just look at the beginning and the end, who was he at the beginning? And then who was he at the end? In the beginning, farm boy, bored, mundane life, longing for adventure. When he gets to the end, he achieves that. He's a Jedi Knight. He's a hero of the galaxy. And if all you knew before you got into the story was where does he start, where does he end, you can start to imagine something amazing must have happened within that arc. And of course, if you're like me and you love Star Wars, there's no argument, of course. It's amazing. So that's character arc. That's the first element. Once you're comfortable with that, you are, I guess by my math, 33% on your way to creating great characters. The next element to get comfortable with is physical traits. And it is really as literal as it sounds, physical traits. So we're talking about appearance, age, height, body language, clothing, voice. I generally think of it as just in any trait that engages with any of the 5 senses. So smell, taste, touch, vision. You see dead people. Nope. That was the 6th sense. But any of the 5 senses that we have, those are kind of what you want to think about as far as character traits go. And when you're thinking about your character traits as you're developing characters for your story, there's no right or wrong way to do it. There are no rules whatsoever. In writing in general, there's no rules. So if anybody tells you different, tell them Martin says that they're wrong. But while there's not rules, there are often certain principles that work more than they don't. And so for me, one of the guiding principles that I find work as far as physical traits is the less is better as far as physical traits go. So when I'm creating a character and I'm getting into the physical traits, I describe physical traits very much at a minimum. Less is more for my money. There are reasons why you might have a longer description or more time invested in the physical traits, and we could talk about that in just a second. But again, if you were looking for just a general guiding principle as far as physical traits go, less is more. And I have a couple of examples I want to share with you. So we've got 3 books here. 2 of them are absolutely a couple of my favorite books of all time, and one of them is The Godfather by Mario Puzo. I'm being silly. I love The Godfather. So we've got The Godfather by Mario Puzo. We've got Inside the Outside by some hack named Martin Lastrapes. And then we've got The Fourth Bear by Jasper Fforde. I'm a big fan of all 3 of these books. You should check them all out. But in each of these books, there are really good examples that I want to share with you right now about what it looks like when physical traits are effectively shared in prose fiction. So we'll start with The Godfather by Mario Puzo. If you haven't read the book, that's okay. You've likely seen the movie. Even if you haven't seen the movie, at this point it's so ingrained in pop culture, you probably kind of sort of know what it's about even without having seen the movie or read the book. But it's a wonderful book. And the main character, both in the book and the movie, is Michael Corleone, who he himself has an amazing character arc of any story, both in fiction, movies, what have you, where he goes from, this young sort of shy guy, goes to the military, his dad's big mafia leader, and then over the course of his story, he takes over the family mafia business. It's tremendous. And then he has an amazing dynamic character arc. But within the book itself, even though he's the central character in the book, there's not a lot of physical description of Michael Corleone. So this here is really just the primary physical description of Michael. Michael Corleone was the youngest son of the Don, and the only child who had refused the great man's direction. He did not have the heavy, Cupid-shaped face of the other children, and his jet black hair was straight rather than curly. His skin was clear, olive skin, that would have been called beautiful in a girl. He was handsome in a delicate way. And that's basically it. Now, again, he's the main character, and there are lots of descriptions of Michael Corleone, and certainly there's probably other bits and pieces of his physical description. But as far as the book goes, this is really kind of it. And it's kind of sort of all you need. Again, as far as I'm concerned, Mario Puzo and I seem to agree, you don't need a whole lot of physical traits described in the book, but you still want some. It's good to have some. But you don't have to overwhelm the reader with physical traits. And even within this, you likely got, you kind of sort of learn a little bit about Michael, even through his physical traits. Things that kind of go unsaid, but are implicit in the description. So, things like he would have been called, traits that would have been beautiful in a girl. Mario Puzo doesn't go as far as to say that, maybe he wasn't like a tough guy, but he's starting to imply that this kid who grew up in a mafia family maybe wasn't like the first choice to eventually become a mafia boss. So even within that, even as you describe physical traits, you can still couch some other character traits in there if you're kind of clever with your writing and the choices that you're making. So then we have this guy. He insisted that I share something about his book, Inside the Outside. And he was persuasive, so I listened to him. So this is my first novel, Inside the Outside. And one of the characters in the novel, her name is Ginger Falls. And again, published this book in 2011. And so that was roughly, 14 years ago. Actually, it was almost 14 years ago to the day. I published the book in July 2011. And over the last 14 years, the character of Ginger Marlowe, it's been brought to my attention, is one of the most popular characters in the book. And this was and is a pleasant surprise to me because I had no idea that was going to be the case when I wrote it. As often happens when you write a book, you think you know what the readers are going to like, but then you write the book and you publish it, and then they tell you what they actually like. And the stuff you thought they were going to love, they don't even notice. And the stuff that you gave not even a second thought to becomes stuff that they absolutely adore. And it's great. So Ginger Falls, I love all the characters in my book. I love all of my characters. But if having said that, if I'm being honest, I really didn't anticipate Ginger Falls was going to take off the way that she did. And it was going to become such a huge emotional anchor for so many readers who love this book. But what I want to share with you is just a brief physical description of Ginger Falls, which, similar to The Godfather, it's really the only substantial physical description I have of this character in this book. Ginger was 18 years old at the time Timber first laid eyes on her. She had auburn hair, which was pulled back into a lazy ponytail. Her skin was fair, almost white as a sheet of paper in the glare of morning that came in through the window. Her cheeks were dotted with freckles, and her face, without makeup, was the prettiest Timber had ever seen. Now, as far as physical traits, that's genuinely about all Ginger gets. She's an important character in the book, and she's extremely important to what happens in the course of the story. But as far as how she looks physically, that's really all you get. And yet, like I said, over the last 14 years, I've been fortunate enough that readers who've read the book and fallen in love with the book have told me time and time again that this character, Ginger Falls, really stuck with them, really struck a chord with them. They really love her. And again, on my end, it was a pleasant surprise. I had no idea. I didn't see that one coming. The last example, as far as physical traits go, is from The Fourth Bear by Jasper Fforde. Jasper Fforde is absolutely one of my very favorite writers. He's so funny, he's so creative, he's so inventive with his stories and his plots. This particular book, The Fourth Bear, it's sort of a fun, subversive retelling of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but it's told as a hard-boiled detective noir story. And so in the book, you have there's this character. She's a journalist. Her nickname is Goldilocks. She's investigating this town of anthropomorphic bears, and while she's investigating it, she's murdered. And so this detective is going to solve this murder, and he goes to one of these bears' houses, and he finds 3 bowls of porridge, as you might imagine. And one of those bowls is too cold, one of them is too hot, and one of them is just right, and he doesn't know what it is, but just something doesn't feel right about this crime scene. And only 3 bears live here, and this is where the murder happened, but he can't prove it yet, but as far as he's concerned, there had to be a 4th bear. It's a wonderful book. I love it so much. Within this book, the antagonist of this book is a character called the Gingerbread Man. And that's not a nickname. It's quite literally the Gingerbread Man that you're thinking about. And the Gingerbread Man in this book is one of the most terrifying characters I've ever read in fiction. And again, he's a large cookie that's shaped like a man, and he can talk to you. And he is he's terrifying. He's like a mixture. He's like Hannibal Lecter meets Betty Crocker. And again, it's a funny book. It's charming. It's humorous, and yet Jasper Fforde found a way to make this cookie man kind of terrifying. But my other point, and I'm going to share you an excerpt where you get to meet the Gingerbread Man. So I talked about the guiding principle of, with physical characteristics, less is more, and that's absolutely true as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to fantasy as a genre, that rule might bend a little bit, because when you're talking about, again, maybe just literary fiction, for example, you're writing about people, and if you're lucky, your readers will also be people. Although, as I say that out loud, if your reader's not a person, that's fascinating, and I would like to know about that. But generally speaking, your readers are going to be people, which means that they understand the human experience. Therefore, when you're writing your characters, you can kind of write a certain shorthand. You can use minimal details, and your reader's going to fill in the rest for you, whether they know it or not. Because really and truly, for me, reading and writing, writing in particular, it's a collaborative experience. It's a collaboration between you and the reader. You put the words on the page, and then they play the movie in their imagination. And so you give them enough details to get them, 50% of the way, and they'll do the rest. And in fact, more times than not, I find, some readers don't want all the details, because part of the fun is, their brain fills in the rest. And I think that's absolutely true. And I also think it's true with fantasy. But when we're talking about fantasy, we are, literally talking about, genres and characters and worlds that otherwise don't exist. And so they might need more description than you would otherwise do with, say, a human character, or in this case, the Gingerbread Man. So here's the first substantial physical description of the Gingerbread Man. However many photos you see, however much news footage you watch of the Gingerbread Man, nothing can quite prepare you for seeing him in all his baked glory. He was a dark brown color, the shade of mahogany, and 7 feet tall, with weighty limbs and a large head. His jacket was open, revealing several large pink icing buttons that ran down his chest. He had glazed cherries the size of grapefruits for his eyes, and a dollop of red icing for a nose. His mouth was 2 slivers of licorice, the corners of which rose into a smile as soon as he saw them. Now, physically, as you could probably tell, just by word count, that's a longer description than the first 2 examples I gave you, and which, again, for me makes sense in this case, a fantasy novel. Doesn't take place in the world that we live in. So you might need more details to help give your reader the context they need. But even still, it's a minimal amount of physical traits. Jasper Fforde, by the way. So this is part of a a nursery crime series. So I think as of today, there's only one other nursery crime story, but it's a detective noir story where he's looking to solve the murder of Humpty Dumpty. It's really good. Who did it, by the way? I mean, is it possible he just fell off a wall? I don't think so. Jack Spratt, that's the detective. He's going to find out for you. Read the book. I don't get paid for this. I just like his books. Okay, so those are physical traits. So now we're 2/3 of the way in. We've got character arc, that first element. If you're good with that, you're almost golden. You got physical traits. They matter, but they're not everything. But they can matter a lot. For example, I guess I'm going backwards a little bit. Let's say, for example, you have a character and they have a scar. Maybe they have a scar on their arm. One of the fun things about a scar, especially in a story, is that scar implies there's a story to be told. How did they get that scar? What happened? Was it an accident? Was it a fight? Was it dangerous? Did it hurt? Was there surgery? What was it? Where were they when it happened? How old were they? All these questions are implied just with that physical idea that there's a scar. So physical description does matter, but more than the physical stuff. For me, for my money, as a writer, the abstract traits I find are more impactful than the physical traits. So when we're talking about the abstract traits, it quite literally is kind of just the opposite of the physical stuff. It's all the things that you can't see. So when you're talking about your characters, we're thinking about personality, emotional attributes, intellectual qualities, their values and beliefs, all of these things that just from your own experience as a person, all of these things matter. They're all important. And you might have physical representation of these things, but ultimately these traits are abstract in nature. You don't see them, but they're very impactful. And so when I'm thinking about developing a character and I'm thinking about abstract traits, for me, I find that it's helpful to try to answer a series of questions about who this character is. This isn't an exhaustive list, but if this was the only list you had, then I would say you have more than enough questions to help build the foundation of your character, in particular, their abstract traits. So what makes them happy? What makes them sad? What do they fear? What makes them proud? What gives them shame? What is their biggest strength? What is their biggest weakness? What is their greatest regret? What do they want most in the world? And hopefully, my hope is, just by presenting you with these questions, right away, what I'm hoping is it's breaking your imagination open. And you realize, as I start to think about these questions, a character might start to develop. You might have a character that you're working on right now. Maybe you're writing a novel. Maybe you're writing a short story. Maybe you're writing a TV pilot. But whatever it is, maybe you're thinking about your characters, and maybe you realize, oh, I do know what makes them happy, and I do know what makes them sad. But do I know what they're afraid of? I don't know. Maybe I should think about that. Do I know what brings them shame? Was there an incident in their life that when they think about it, it makes them feel very shameful? Do I know that about my character? If I don't, I probably should. And as you start answering these questions, you can really start to imagine how that character is going to start to form. Because really, for each one of these questions, as you answer them, not unlike the physical trait, not unlike the example I said if a character has a scar, every one of these answers, there's a story behind it. It creates a portal to your story and the character that you're, the story that you're telling, the character that you're developing. So when you talk about what makes them happy, whatever it is, maybe puppy makes them happy, and that's cute. But then it begs the question, what is it about puppies that makes this character happy? Could it be that they're cute? Maybe, sure. Is there something deeper than that? Probably. And it's worth exploring. So you answer the question, but then you start to recognize it's not just an answer to a question, it's a portal into who that character is. And as you go down that portal, it's not just a portal into who that character is, but a story starts to develop from there. So, again, like maybe your character, maybe they love dogs. And maybe one day your character was walking home from school and there was a bully. The neighborhood bully was picking on them. And they thought they were about to get beat up. And right before it happened, a dog came out and it chased off the bully and it scared him away. And from that day forward, that character loves this dog now. And forever, for the rest of their life, they just love dogs. So what makes them happy? The answer is dogs. But if you go into that portal, you realize there's a whole story connected there. And depending on the story you're writing, maybe that story happens, and maybe that's the backstory you share in your novel. Maybe that happens right in the foreground. Maybe that's chapter 1 because that sets up their character arc, whatever it is. But that's why you can kind of start to see, for me, the abstract traits are a lot more impactful than the physical traits. Now, as far as an example goes, I want to talk a little bit about the Joker, who, as far as comic books go, I don't think there's any argument that the Joker is probably the most famous, most iconic comic book villain in all comic books. And even if you take that into literature and pop culture in general, I would argue that the Joker is one of the most well-known and in some cases beloved villains that exist. And his most, not that he wrote it, but his most famous appearance in a comic is in a story called The Killing Joke. And so if you're a comic book fan, you probably recognize it. This is the cover of The Killing Joke. And so The Killing Joke, it's a standalone graphic novel. It's a Batman story, as you might imagine, but you can also tell by the cover, even though it's a Batman story, the Joker is very much at the center of this story. And so the writer of this story, Alan Moore, he's really one of the most legendary comic book writers there is, and he's part of that is he just has a really, really keen understanding of storytelling and character development. And so I would make the argument that the reason that this stands out as the most iconic Joker story is because it's really the first and arguably the only story where you get a full picture of the Joker, a full sort of character arc of who this character is. Now, if you don't read comic books, it's worth noting that hundreds of different writers write for the same characters. The Joker's been around since I think the 40s, maybe. I think Batman came out right around 1947 or so. The Joker came out not long after that. So for many, many decades, the Joker's been around. So hundreds of writers have written this character in comic books, but also in movies and television. And the thing about the Joker, he's sort of a trickster character. He's not exactly the same depending on what writer is taking him on. He has all the general same elements. He is evil. He is a villain. Batman hates him. All those things are there. But depending on the writer, he's a little bit nuanced from book to book. In The Killing Joke, this was the first story where the Joker gets a fleshed out backstory, and you kind of find out a little bit who he is before he became the Joker. So here's 3 panels from the book that I'll share with you really quick. The gentleman there, that's the man who will eventually become the Joker. So in this panel, he's sitting with his wife, and she's expecting their first child. And so he says, not when you're carrying my son. And she says, how do you know it's a boy? And he says, because I bought this today. And he shows her a baseball mitt. So she says, a baseball mitt? Already, are you joking? And he says, no. I'm telling you, Jeannie, it's a boy. It's a boy, and we're going to do everything together. We're going to get out of this dump and make a life for ourselves, a real life together. So in this very brief 3 panels of the comic book, you see this character. And within the story, you find out that he's an aspiring comedian. That's his big dream. He also has a little bit of a bit of a criminal element. He's a low-level criminal, but that's he does that to make money. But it's not what he wants to do with his life. But over the course of this particular story, there's a larger criminal element in town, and they force him into participating in a really big crime. Bless you. And actually, I'm going to throw one more bless you in case anybody needs to sneeze. Put that in your back pocket. I just don't want to be rude. So if you need it for later. It's all yours. So this character, he's got his wife. She's expecting a child. He has dreams of being a comedian. He wants to buy a house for the family. He wants to raise his son. And then over the course of the story, his wife is kidnapped. She loses the child. She dies. He's forced to do this huge, this huge crime, and ultimately it breaks him. And it breaks him to the point where he eventually becomes what we know as the Joker. And knowing his backstory, it doesn't mean that you forgive him as a character. It doesn't mean you forgive the bad things that he's done, because he still is. He's a villain. He's awful. And in this book in particular, he is as evil as the Joker has ever been, not just with murder, but to the degree in which he, tortures and is absolutely evil. But within the story, you also get a little bit of backstory. You get an idea of who was this guy before he became the Joker. And if that sounds familiar, what I'm describing is a character arc. Who was he at the beginning of the story, and who was he at the end? In this case, generally speaking, we might think of a hero's journey. Luke Skywalker, Dorothy, who were they at the beginning, and how do they conquer the world and become heroes at the end? But a character arc can work both ways. It can also work for your villains, your antagonists. So in this case, the Joker, he started as, a reasonably nice guy. He was a criminal, but that's not what he wanted to do with his life. And then by the time he gets to the end and becomes this evil character of the Joker, we have an idea of how he got there. Now, as far as the abstract traits go, if we were going to apply these questions to the Joker, specifically for the story of The Killing Joke, here's what we might come up with. So what makes him happy? Reducing others to madness through chaos and cruelty. It's not very nice, but it makes him happy. What makes him sad? Losing his family and dignity as a struggling comedian. What's he afraid of? That trauma doesn't always create madness, because in his case, he has the luxury of knowing he's only mad because this bad thing happened to him. But what if that's not why? Maybe he was mad all along. What makes him proud? The theatrical artistry of his torture. What is he ashamed of? His failure as a comedian and a husband. What's his greatest strength? Weaponizing nihilism to justify his actions. What about his greatest weakness? Needing Batman's attention to validate his existence. One of the fun sort of subplots, we'll call it, in the story arc of Batman and the Joker is they kind of beneath the surface, they kind of have a love affair. Like, they think they hate each other, but they can't really exist without one another. But the Joker knows that more than Batman. Batman thinks he's going after a villain. The Joker knows, hey man, we're in love. And I wouldn't kill you if I could, because, what would I do without you? Which also kind of sort of is the title of the story, The Killing Joke. They kind of get into that. Wonderful story. If you don't like comics, or if you've never engaged, but you're looking for a doorway in, it's a great story. What's his biggest regret? Losing his family and his grip on sanity. And what does he want most in the world? What does he desire? To force Batman to admit their shared insanity. Because the other thing about Batman, of course, is if you spend enough time thinking about it, he's a little bit also off of his rocker. He's a hero, and he wants to save us, but he also dresses as a bat. And he's also my favorite superhero character of all time. We don't have enough time for me to wax poetic on why I love Batman so much. Maybe if I get invited back, I'll just talk about why I love Batman. Okay, so with that said, I thought it would be fun to do a group activity with you guys, in large part because I've talked long enough. So in just a second, my friends in the back, they're going to pull up the sheet that you have in front of you. We're going to put this up on the screen. And what I want to do with you guys is I want to create a character together. And this is for the folks in the room here and the folks online on Zoom. Absolutely, I would love it if you guys, if you want to participate, you guys are absolutely involved.
And they also were sent the Word document as well.
Fantastic, wonderful. So yeah, if you have it at home, you can pull up on your computer. That's awesome. So here's the idea. Here's what I want to do with you guys. We're going to create a character together, and I suspect, because there's quite a few of us here, we can do it in a relatively quick order. I'm tempted to time it. I'm wondering if we could do this in less than 5 minutes. I don't know if we can, but it might be fun. Anybody want to be a timer? Anybody have their phone on them? They could just be like a timer for them. Oh, of course you can. That's why you're in the front row. She showed up to rehearsal, but we're going to pretend like this is. Go ahead and let me know when you're ready. So as far as the timer, well, actually, I'll explain the activity. Is it Angela, right? Okay, fantastic. So here's the exercise. As you can see it here on the screen, I've got 3 blocks for physical description. That's not set in stone when you write your own characters. You can use more than 3 physical descriptions. For this exercise, we're just going to go with 3 physical descriptions. And then for those abstract traits, we have 1 block for every abstract trait. And so when I go to you guys, I'm just going to, I could call on you, maybe you can shout them out, but either way, we want to fill this in. And so for, let's see, so for Angela, I think, let's see, what are we going to do? Actually, I feel like we need to rehearse, because again, we did rehearsal. You were there. You were great, by the way. How do we do this? So I know what it is. Actually, you know what? I might be asking you to do extra work, but I think you're up for it. I could tell. Maybe you can do this for us. For every minute that passes, just shout it out. So that way we have a nice sense of urgency, make us nervous. So we'll practice. Exactly. So I'm going to briefly pretend like I'm talking. We're going to pretend this is make believe. I'll pretend like I'm talking about something. You'll do. I'll count you down quietly, and then you'll say like 1 minute, and then we're like, oh, 1 minute, guys, we're getting close. So okay. So I'm going to pretend to talk, but I'll quietly. So this is so blah blah blah. Character. I love Batman. I love the Joker. They're in love. When are they going to realize it? And then Angela says, 1 minute. Go ahead and say it. 1 minute. 1 minute. My goodness, she is a pro. I knew I knew you were the right person for the job. Okay. And I feel like everybody else knows their role in this. I think my idea is, if you guys are comfortable, just to keep it orderly, maybe I'll just scan the room and I'll find the person who doesn't look terrified to talk, and I'll ask you to fill in one of these traits for us. And you know what? Because I'm generous, I won't even limit you. Whichever one sounds fun, just make up a trait. My friends in the back have to type it in though, so don't make it any longer than they can type. Honestly, up until 5 minutes ago, I thought I had to type, so I'm relieved. Make them as long as you want, actually.
Also, since people on Zoom will not be able to hear what the audience is saying, do you want me to repeat what each person says so the Zoom participants can hear?
I would love that. Look at this. Look at this room. You guys are put together. Can we do this every Saturday? No, that's all right. That's okay. Oh. Okay, so everybody feel good about the assignment? We know where we're at? Okay, yeah. Again, she's such a good timekeeper. She was rehearsing, keeping time. I knew we got the right person for the job, Angela. Okay, so we're feeling good. Everybody ready? And also, the more random, the better. We're doing a sort of a Frankenstein character together. So, Angela, go ahead and start the clock. And this is me scanning the room. Oh, anybody want to volunteer? Raise your hand if you want to jump in. Otherwise, I will very politely voluntold you. My friend in the front, Jim. Okay, which trait do you want? Physical one. Broken left leg. Love it. So can we type broken left leg?
That was broken left leg.
Did you see there was already an emotional reaction with that physical trait? Jim's onto something. Okay, let me get another volunteer. How's about, yes, Miss K. Murphy. I love that. Smaller than the average person. Fantastic. So if you can't read it, so we've got what makes this character happy? What makes them sad? What do they fear? And again, if this becomes a Frankenstein character, the more Frankenstein, the better. The more random, the better. Because by the time we get done with it, we're going to have a very interesting character. Yeah, what you got, Angela? Yes. Okay, so what makes this character sad? His son did not visit him when he got. You guys are telling a story. I did not see this happening. Yes, in the back.
Fear, dying alone.
Love it. Love it. Okay, dying alone. Fantastic. So we've got happy, we've got proud, we've got. Oh, yes, in the back. What makes this character happy? Jumping out of. You guys are so good. Jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. This is more fun than I thought it was going to be. Yes, in the back. Oh, look at us. I'm getting emotional for this character. They're not even real yet. Not being able to save his wife. Fantastic. Yes, in the back. Okay, bionic leg for Desire. Also, not to interrupt our progress, but this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. Like, in fairness, when I woke up this morning, I was curious. You guys are far. Oh, 2 minutes we found. Okay, so we're still in that nice 2 minutes in. Fantastic. Okay, we're doing
Anybody
great.
on Zoom want to participate?
Yeah, Zoom, you guys are part of this. So, we'll take a second to see if you guys. We've got pride. We've got shame. We've got.
Kevin is on. Go.
Okay.
Actually, Jan Meyer, she actually said weakness is eating foods with added sugar.
You know what? Yeah. Eating foods with added sugar. I love it. Frankly, the more random, the better. So that was from Jan. Outstanding, Jan. You understood the assignment. Well done. So we've got what makes them proud, what gives them shame, what gives them strength, and one more slot for a physical trait. This is fun. You guys are great. Yes, in the back. What's that? Wings. Oh, I love it. Wings. Why not? There's no rules. There's no rules. Nobody heard me say there was restrictions on this character. They absolutely have wings, which is a fantastic physical trait, because now it's a story. My first thought is, all right, well, how did that happen?
Chris Banner on Zoom says shame, hiding behind others when danger appears.
Oh, yeah, we... Hiding behind others. Cherry red hair? Let's do it. Let's break the rules because you guys are doing so great. Just maybe do a slash or a bullet point, whatever you want. You guys have earned the 4th physical trait. So we're down to what makes them proud and what's their greatest strength. There's no wrong answer. The weirder, the better. Wings. What's that? Brutal honesty. That's a strength? Okay, yeah. So their biggest strength is they are brutally honest. That's why they're afraid of dying alone, is because they're brutally honest. You can see how the character starts to build themselves once you plug these in. One more. What makes them proud? At the very back, yeah. What's that? Proud to be an American. Type it in. We've got it. And we're down to under a minute. Look at it. Okay, so we've got like 30 seconds. Maybe we just stand here proudly for the last 30 seconds that we did this. We did, and you know what? I'll take these 30 seconds to say, first of all, I want to take you guys everywhere. You guys are really good at this, and there's there's a couple of reasons why this exercise, specifically this morning, made me so happy. Okay, 10 seconds. I'm going to go over my time. So, so the first thing that we did it. Round of applause for yourselves. So first of all, before I get into the reason why I love this so much, this character, I would read this character immediately. If this character existed in the book, I want to know more about this character. What I love about this exercise and how great you guys were is this particular character, quite literally 5 minutes ago, didn't exist. And more specifically, the only reason that this character exists is because this specific group of people was in the same room at the same time on this specific day, which means literally, in the whole history of humanity, not only did this character not exist, but they couldn't exist before we got together. So right away, you guys are special. And if you didn't know that already, I'm telling you, you guys are special. And my friends online, you guys are part of this. Jan, I believe. Yeah, you guys are fantastic. So right away, you guys are special. We created something together, and by we, you guys did it. I just sat here and was just a carnival barker. But then beyond that, what I love about this particular exercise and these traits that we have on the screen here is we have each of these traits become something of a portal into this character. It's not all apparent, but it's absolutely in the subtext. And it absolutely gives you something that you can think further about. So again, what makes them happy? Jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. As a detail, that's great. But then I start digging. I was like, well, that's fascinating. Why do they like jumping out of planes so much? What was the first experience they had? Did they just like watching war movies as a kid? Maybe their aunt jumped out of planes and they were never old enough, but they always wanted to do it. Whatever it is, I'm just literally thinking off the top of my head. But you can start to see how each one of these details becomes a bit of a portal and who this character is, what makes them happy, what makes them sad. And in terms of how you ultimately put this together, there's no rules. Certainly, me of all people wouldn't put a restriction on you. But let's say you decided as an exercise you're going to take all of these character traits, the 3 physical ones, or technically 4 physical with the slash, and then the 9 abstract traits, and you wanted to write all of these details and squeeze them into 1 paragraph or half a page. You could do that. There's no rules against that. There's no rules in writing in general. There's principles. There's things that work better than other things, but there's no rules. You could do that. Or maybe you're writing a novel and you want to spread these traits out, and you want your reader to discover your character. So over the course of maybe 300 pages, you slowly walk your reader through some of these character traits. Maybe in some cases, you don't even specify that the trait exists, but you as the writer, you know that trait exists. And because you know it exists, you allow that trait to inform who the character is. So with that in mind, this is a thing you can do on your own at any given point. When you're creating a character, if you're starting from scratch and you don't quite know what to do, just do that exercise. Just come up with 3 physical traits and 9 abstract traits based on the table that we have here, And you could quite literally have absolutely nothing, no story, no character, no plot, nothing. And you can go through this exercise, and by the end of it, right away, we've got a lot of material to work with. In this case, we've got a character with a broken leg and wings, and they're brutally honest. They have a broken leg, which thank goodness for the wings. They regret not being able to save their wife, which if they have wings, my brain goes into sort of fantasy, maybe a superhero element, and I can see a tragedy there of a superhero who, for all the people they saved, they couldn't save their wife. Boy, that sounds good. One of you should write that. But again, even that's quite literally just me, stream of consciousness, based on you guys doing this exercise. So it's okay. If for me, I'm busy. So you can see, like, if you can do this exercise whenever you want. You can do it in a story that you're in the middle of. You can do it as an exercise of, I don't have a story, but I want to find something to write about. This is one of my favorite exercises. So we can go back to the PowerPoint at this point. I appreciate that. So I'll bet you a cup of coffee I can do it in 7. I don't know if that's true, but we'll see. Okay, so we'll get the PowerPoint back up. No, I know that was me. The crowd looked nervous. I just wanted them to know we're okay. We rehearsed. No, we didn't. All right, so this is my most recent novel. I mentioned it a little bit earlier in the presentation. This is Grover Wilcox Goes to the Circus. And so I want to share an excerpt from this book that it does a little bit of everything of the things that I was talking to you guys about. In particular, it kind of gets into, physical traits. It combines them with abstract traits. And I kind of wanted to demonstrate when you put these things together, you can start to see how a character can really come off the page. Now, as far as the story itself, it's told in the first person. So my main character is Grover Wilcox. So in this particular example I'm going to share with you guys, Grover is actually talking about his dad, Rex Wilcox. And at this point, it's very early in the story. And Grover, at this point in the story, finds out that his dad is in the hospital with a mysterious coma. They don't know what's wrong with him. They don't know when or if he's ever going to wake up. So at this point in the story, Grover is reflecting on his dad. And in so doing, he's very much fleshing out this character of Rex Wilcox. Dad is like the love child of Paul Bunyan and Wonder Woman. He's been a firefighter for the Rancho Cucamonga Fire Protection District since before I was born, moving steadily through the ranks from engineer to captain to deputy chief and eventually fire chief. He's something of a manly man, brawny and tough, always with a crew cut and freshly shaved face. Every time he hugs me, he kisses my cheek. When he speaks, he looks you in the eye, and he's never exchanged a cross word with anyone who didn't deserve it. He always says please and thank you, and you can never beat him to a handshake. And as I kind of showed you with some of the previous examples, as far as Rex Wilcox goes, for the physical descriptions, that's about all you get. But I literally wrote it, but from when I was writing it, that's kind of all I felt that I needed. Just a few physical traits, help the reader kind of sort of start to paint a picture in their mind. But then I fleshed a lot more out of it with abstract traits about, you kind of get an idea of who he is as a man, who he is as a father, and even some of the unspoken things. The fact that his narrator, that his son is the narrator, the fact that he speaks so highly of his dad. Some of the unspoken stuff is you start to imagine this a good dad, an honorable person. All these things kind of get fleshed out, things that they start coming together. The physical traits, the abstract traits, and even over the course of the story, Rex also gets his own narrative, his own character arc. And I think I made it under the gun, but that's everything. So that's character development. That's creating the illusion of flesh and blood on the page. It has been genuinely my absolute pleasure and honor to be here with you guys this morning. You've been wonderful. My name is Martin Lastrapes, and whatever. This has been character development. Oh, really quickly. I'm sorry. I brought some copies of Grover Wilcox Go to the Circus. I actually had intended to bring more copies in a few of my other books, but my personal assistant, I gave them strict instructions on when we needed the books by, and we didn't get them. And so just for transparency, I'm my own personal assistant. So So after this meeting, we're gonna have a constructive one-on-one. I'm not mad at them, just, they need to do better.
We have some time for questions and answers.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Okay,
Okay.
so Q&A, I would
Q&A.
love that.
Great.
Less than 3? Oh, fantastic. All right.
So
listen.
line up at the microphone if you have a question for
Yeah,
Martin, please.
yeah, please
At
do.
the microphone in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't have to raise your hand. Just line up at the microphone. And anyone online, be on deck. Oh, here comes Kay.
Can you please plug your podcast, sir? I love it.
Absolutely. That was listen, you would think that I asked her to do that, but I didn't. So I have a podcast. It is called the Martin Lastrapes Show Podcast Hour. It is a show that may or may not be an hour long, depending on how much I've got to say in your perception of time. And I primarily talk about writing, creative writing. I talk with a lot of authors from, beginning self-published authors to New York Times bestselling authors. And, it's something I'm very proud of. Been doing it for 10 or so years now. So thank you for that, Kay, for setting me up for that.
So tell us a little bit about the vampire one. Did you originally write one book and break it into 3? How did that, or did you know from the beginning you wanted to do 3? How did you come up with that?
Look at you. It's like we rehearsed this.
There we go.
Okay, so that's a fantastic question. And the first draft of it actually was just one big first draft. And the first draft, if I remember correctly, it was I don't know, maybe somewhere in the area of maybe like 800 or 900 pages. And I wasn't trying to write that big of a book, but the first draft was a really big book. And so at the time, I kind of thought, rather than trying to pare this down, maybe there's a way I can break it up. So I found sort of within the book itself, I told it in sort of a traditional, 3-arc story structure. So that lent itself to book 1, book 2, and book 3. But even when I broke it up, they weren't all the same size. So there was some revision involved. Book 1 I had to flesh out. Book 2 I kind of pared down a little bit. But ultimately became 3 books. This was a very astute question. So if you read all 3 books together, it does work as one linear story. But also I tried really hard to make sure each book succeeds as an individual story. So thank you for that question. By the way, so up on the screen here, there's a QR code for you. This is my short story collection, Dolph the Unicorn Killer, and other stories. I already knew you guys were going to be fantastic, so I want to give you this book for free if you're interested. Just scan the QR code, and you can get it for free. The only catch, because there is a catch, you have to sign up for my mailing list, but I won't bombard you. You'll get maybe 1 or 2 emails a month, and I promise they will be as entertaining as I'm able to make them. They're short too. But yeah, go in there, sign up for the mailing list, get your free copy of Dolph the Unicorn Killer and other stories, and read it, tell your friends about it. And this QR code is for anybody. If you know anybody who enjoys unicorn killing superheroes, give them the QR code, and they have it available to them. Happy to answer any other questions if they're available, if you got them.
Anyone else have a question for Martin?
Maybe online. I'm looking at you online.
Nobody online has a question? Come on, there's got to be somebody out there.
You see me wincing at you.
Oh,
there we go.
Greg.
Since you kept this on the book,
yes.
how much are you selling these for writers?
Okay. So what's your name? Greg. Greg, thank you for showing up to rehearsal. That was perfect. So as far as the book goes, if you went on Amazon, I sell the book for $17.99. But because I love you guys so much, and I don't use the word love lightly, I'd be happy to sell it to you for $10. If you have cash, that would make my life easier. If you have a Venmo or something, then my lovely assistant who agreed to marry me, she could help out with that.
You're a pup.
Everyone's like bending down.
You're a self-published author.
Yes.
You started in 2011.
Yep.
Obviously, it's much different than now, self-publishing. It's
Yes.
much more respected now to self-publish.
Absolutely.
So how many books have you sold from like 2011 to, starting that book?
Yeah.
And then now you're at 2025.
Yeah.
How are they selling and how are you doing that?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So I'll start with, I wish I had a concrete number for you. I don't. I would say, conservatively speaking, in the high thousands, I would say, for all of my books put together. Inside the Outside, I would say to this day that was my first book in 2011. That one has been my most successful. I've definitely sold at least a few thousand copies of that one. When I first published it in 2011, maybe in 2012 I did this. Amazon had started offering the opportunity to do like a free book promotion where for a couple of days you could put your book up for free. And so when I put Inside the Outside up for free for the first time, I think I got 10,000 downloads, which blew me away. So between like sales and books that I've given away, over 10,000, probably close to 20,000 of that first book. All the books after that, I would say each book is somewhere in the thousands. I really wish I had a better answer for you in terms of sales. I can tell you that in the last probably even 5 years, there's a lot more resources for getting your book out there, to engaging with readers, making them aware that your book is out there. With that first book, as you alluded to, along with it being kind of difficult to self-publish a book, there wasn't a lot of resources. It was also really difficult to promote it. There was no blueprint, so I was kind of learning as I went along. But consequently, things like having a website, starting a podcast, things like that, help bring attention to me as an author, and then if I can sell an audience as me as an author, it makes it a little bit easier to possibly sell them on the book. So somewhere in the tens of thousands. I wish I had a better answer for you though, in terms of actual numbers.
There is a question on Zoom from Tessa Floriano.
Yeah.
She says, what do you find is the toughest part of creating a protagonist and an antagonist?
I think maybe for me, probably the toughest part is figuring out what's the synergy between the character arc and the story arc. Certainly you can tell a story that's character driven, and the character arc is the story. And that you'll usually find that in literary fiction, and I love those books. But for the stories that I like to tell, I like a good, strong, dynamic story arc. So for me, I would say the most challenging part is finding the synergy between the character arc and the story arc, how they work together, how they impact each other, in what ways is going from the starting point to the challenges to the turning point, all those things. How do those affect not just the character but the story itself? So that's probably the toughest part in terms of finding that synergy. And even with an antagonist, I would say that the same thing is true, although an antagonist, generally speaking, I don't want to say it's easier to write the antagonist, but the antagonist, in so many ways, they exist as a foil to your protagonist. So as you put in the work with your protagonist, the antagonist almost kind of starts to form themselves. So if you're Batman and you're trying to save people, it makes sense the Joker wants to do the opposite. So it's not necessarily that clear cut, but it can be. So I hope I answered your question. If not, let's pretend I did.
Chris Banner on Zoom asks, do you have any advice for when you're writing a story and two characters' voices have become too similar?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Well, I'm going to pretend like I have advice, and we're going to see where it goes once I start talking. One of the things that I do, for better or for worse, is with rare exceptions, I don't put too much emphasis on my character's voices. Like there's things like accents, like maybe if it feels like it's important for your character to have an accent, then you make a decision like, do you want to write that phonetically? Which you can. It could become tricky. Maybe it becomes tricky to kind of keep the consistency throughout the book, but that's a way you can do it. You can just say the character has an accent, they're from the Deep South, whatever that is, and then let the reader fill in the rest themselves. But beyond that, I kind of sort of depend on really all of the other character stuff, their personality, what are they afraid of, what makes them proud, what's their strength. I kind of lean on those things to kind of, to a certain degree, inform the character's voice a little bit. But having said that, I do have characters where, like just for example, in my circus novel, Grover Wilcox Goes to the Circus. One of my characters, he's he's part of the ring crew. He's just somebody who helps put the circus together. So he's just very working class, nice guy. And the way I imagined him is, okay, maybe he's working class. Maybe he didn't go to college. Maybe he dropped out of school at some point. So in terms of how he spoke, in terms of his dialogue, I just sort of limited his vocabulary. I didn't make him sound, like a numbskull, because I liked him too much for that. But I just sort of actively was aware of his vocabulary or his manner of speaking or his phrasing in speaking, things that wouldn't necessarily be obvious on the page. But as you're reading the story, your reader will implicitly take these things in. So I would say that as far as dialogue and character voice is sort of thinking about who the character is, what's their background, what's their level of education. So that something as simple as that would let you know, okay, maybe they dropped out of school in the 9th grade. So maybe what's their word choice? What words would they have access to? Okay, use those words, don't use other words. And it's going to help make your character extremely genuine. And of course, the opposite is true. If you want a character that's extremely academic or verbose, something like that. I hope that helps answer your question a little bit, especially since I didn't have any answer when I started. Have we? Oh, okay. Well, you guys were fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, everybody. Thank you.
Wow, let's give Martin yet a second round of applause. Wasn't that fabulous? Fabulous. Okay, a couple of last minute things. Thank you all for attending. Our next meeting is on August 16th, and Kevin's going to tell us about our August speaker. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, this kind of comes into my tech tips originally about building your digital footprint. Next month, we have her blurb is, being an author can be overwhelming. Endless drafts, managing readers, and keeping up with social media can leave you feeling drained. We know how much your readers mean to you, and we're here to help you connect with them more effectively. Kathleen will share practical tips, fresh content ideas, and real-world examples to make every social post feel like a big virtual hug for your readers. And Kathleen Sweeney, she's the Chief Operating Officer of BookBrush, who provides all of our graphics for our social media accounts, our YouTube videos, all that stuff. And she combines her love of technology and storytelling to help authors with book marketing. She's presented to over 300 author groups and thrives on making design and promotion easier and fun for writers of all genres. She's from Central Illinois with her husband, 3 active boys, and 2 most handsome cats on the planet. Her hobbies include tacos and turning socks right side out. So she'll be here next month.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Couple quick reminders. We're always looking for volunteers. If you're interested, see us after the meeting or email us. And if you're not a paid member, we would love your $25. So that's easy to do. Go to our website, click on it, pay through PayPal, send us a check. The treasurer's in the back. You can hand her cash, and you'll even become a member that way. So we're going to adjourn for lunch. Thank you again, and Martin, thank you again.